The medical ward was silent except for the weak sound of machines. The light above the bed flickered as if even the station itself had given up hope. On the bed lay an alien woman, her skin pale like fading silver, her breathing shallow and broken. Every rise of her chest looked like the last, every sound from her lips weaker than before. Doctors whispered among themselves, afraid to speak too loudly. "She will not last till morning," one said in a low voice. "There is no donor." Another shook his head. "Her kind cannot be saved without a matching kidney." The words floated in the air like a sentence already written. The alien woman tried to move her head, but even that was too heavy. Her eyes opened just a little, showing faint light inside. Her voice cracked like broken glass as she whispered, "I don't want to die." But no one answered her, for everyone believed the truth. They could do nothing. Near the corner of the room stood a human man, his hands clenched at his sides. He was not a doctor, not a family member, not a soldier. He was just there, watching her fade away. The silence in the room grew unbearable for him. Finally, he stepped forward, his voice steady but firm. "Test me," he said. "Check if my kidney matches hers." The room froze. All eyes turned toward him in shock. One of the doctors frowned. "You don't understand, human. Even if by miracle your kidney works, the surgery may kill you." The man did not move, he repeated calmly. "Test me." The alien woman's weak eyes shifted toward him, confusion mixed with disbelief. Why would a stranger speak such words for her? An alien most did not even care. To save? Her lips trembled, but no sound came, only a tear rolled down her cheek. The doctors argued, shaking their heads. "It's impossible," one said. "The risk is too high." Another whispered, "If this fails, both will die." But the man's steady gaze did not break. He stood taller, refusing to back down. Minutes felt like hours until finally the chief surgeon sighed. "Fine. We will test your blood." The test tube filled quickly. Machines scanned the data. Every heart in the room waited for the answer. A beep came from the monitor. Numbers scrolled across the screen. The doctors stared with wide eyes. "It's a match," one whispered. In disbelief, the room fell silent again, this time heavier, as if fate itself was deciding the next step. The alien woman's breath hitched, her voice barely a whisper. Why would you?" she asked, her words fragile. The man stepped closer, placing his hand on the side of her bed. "Because no one deserves to die alone," he said quietly. Tears slipped from the alien woman's eyes. Her strength almost gone. She wanted to say more, but the darkness was pulling her down again. The doctors hurried around, preparing the surgical room, their movements sharp and urgent. One nurse whispered, "He will not survive this. He doesn't know what he's giving away." But another replied, "Look at his eyes, he already knows." As the machines wheeled the alien woman toward the surgery room, the human walked beside her bed. He could feel the weight of every step, but his choice was already made. Others tried to stop him, voices rising, warnings shouted, but his resolve was like stone. The alien woman reached out her weak hand, her fingers trembling. The human took it gently, holding it with care. In that touch, she felt something she had never felt before. Not pity, not duty. Something deeper, something fierce. A stranger ready to give life for her. Her lips moved again, whispering in her alien tongue. The words were soft, but the meaning clear. "Don't leave me." The human only nodded once. He looked at the doctors and said, "Do it." The chief surgeon gave the final order, "Prepare for surgery." The doors of the surgical chamber opened with a heavy hiss. The cold light inside felt like a place, between life and death. The human lay down on one table, the alien on the other. Machines surrounded them, wires connected. The air was thick with tension, the hum of machines like drums of fate. The human closed his eyes for a moment. In his mind he saw faces, memories, choices, but when he opened them again his gaze went only to her. She was slipping away and he would not allow it. The doctors injected anesthesia. The alien woman's hand slipped weakly from his. The humans. World went dark, and the room filled with silence again. The operation had begun. Behind the glass, others watched with wide eyes. Some prayed. Some shook their heads. Two lives balanced on the edge of a knife. No one knew if by morning there would be one heartbeat, or none at all. The bright lights of the surgery room burned against the human's closed eyes. He lay on the cold metal table, his chest rising slowly as the anesthesia began to take hold. Across from him, the alien woman's body looked almost lifeless already, her skin faintly glowing but weak. The machines around them beeped and hummed like an orchestra of doom. Outside the glass wall, voices clashed like a storm. "He doesn't understand," one doctor argued. "He will not survive." "This," another shouted back, "it is madness. He is giving away his future for an alien he doesn't even know." The chief surgeon cut through the noise. "Enough. We don't have time. She is slipping. The choice is his." And it was true. The choice was his alone. Lying there, the human could barely keep his eyes open. He felt the heavy weight of fear pressing on his chest. Not fear of death, but fear of failing. Fear that after all this, she would still die. The alien woman turned her head weakly toward him, her lips dry. Her eyes searched his face as if to ask again, "Why?" Her chest rose with painful effort, her words almost gone. "You don't know me," she whispered. "Why give your life?" The human swallowed hard, his throat dry. "I don't need to know your name," he said softly. "You are alive, and that is enough." His voice carried no hesitation, only a quiet certainty that shook even the doctors. The alien's dim eyes filled with tears. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not her own people. Not the ones who had abandoned her. But this human, this stranger, spoke as if her life mattered more than his own. The surgeons rushed around preparing the instruments. The sound of steel trays echoed sharply. One nurse muttered, "If this goes wrong, his blood will flood. He won't last minutes," but another whispered back, "Then why doesn't he look afraid?" The human forced himself to breathe steady. Every sound in the room seemed louder. The hiss of oxygen, the click of metal, the soft hum of monitors. He stared at the ceiling, then turned his eyes back to the alien woman. If this was his last night, he wanted the last thing he saw to be her. The anesthesiologist leaned close. "Once this begins, there is no turning back, do you understand?" The human nodded slowly. "Do it." The alien woman tried to speak again, but only a broken breath escaped. Her fingers trembled as they reached across the gap between the tables. The human lifted his weak hand and caught hers, holding it tightly. That touch froze the entire room. Doctors exchanged glances but said nothing. For in that simple grip was something stronger than reason, something no science could measure. Choice, sacrifice, connection. The chief surgeon gave the final order. "Begin." Scalpels gleamed under the light, robotic arms lowered with precision. The human closed his eyes, letting the darkness take him. But before sleep claimed him fully, he whispered one last thing. "Don't waste this life I give you." The alien woman's heart stuttered. Her lips parted, and though her voice was faint as wind, she answered, "I won't." The anesthesia drowned him, pulling him deep into silence. The surgery began. Machines cut, blood flowed, alarms beeped. The surgeons moved fast, their hands trembling yet sure. Outside the glass, nurses and observers held their breath. Every second felt like a lifetime. Inside her chest, the alien woman's heart slowed dangerously. The doctors raced, the new kidney in their hands glowing faintly under sterile lights. "It fits," one surgeon said in shock. "It might actually work." But as they connected it, the human's pulse dropped suddenly. "His pressure is falling," shouted another. "He's bleeding out." The room erupted into chaos. One life rising, another falling. The alien woman's heart monitor ticked faster, growing stronger, but the human's line dipped lower and lower. "Clamp! Now!" cried the surgeon, his hands moving like lightning. Minutes stretched into eternity. The alien's chest began to rise with steady rhythm. Color returned faintly to her silver skin. Her body accepted the gift. It was working, but beside her, the human grew pale, his breath shallow, his body fighting to hold on. The surgeons worked desperately. One whispered under his mask, "He gave too much. His body is failing." Another growled, "Not yet. Keep fighting. Don't let him go." Finally, after what felt like endless hours, the monitors steadied. The alien's pulse beat strong and clear. The human's line wavered, flickered, then caught again, weak, but alive. Relief swept through the room, but no one dared celebrate yet. The alien woman stirred, her eyes fluttering open. The world was blurry, but the first thing she saw was him, the human lying beside her, pale and broken, but still breathing. Her throat tightened as tears slipped from her eyes. She turned her face toward him and whispered, "You chose me." Her words hung in the air like a vow, though he did not hear them yet, though he was lost in the dark of sleep. The choice he made had already changed everything, not just her life, but perhaps the bond between their worlds. The lights in the room dimmed as machines continued their endless hum. Two lives now bound by blood and sacrifice lay side by side. The doctors backed away, whispering quietly. "Impossible," one said. Yet here they are, alive. The alien woman closed her eyes again. But now, for the first time in a long time, she closed them not in despair but in hope, for she carried inside her the gift of a human's choice, a choice that had turned death into life, and in her silent heart, she made her own vow. One day, when he opened his eyes again, she would give him something back, something beyond science, beyond reason, something only she could give, her heart. The surgery was over, but the night was only beginning. The medical ward was filled with a heavy silence, broken only by the faint rhythm of two heart monitors. One belonged to the alien woman. Her pulse was steady, stronger than before. The other belonged to the human. His line wavered weakly, like a candle fighting against the wind. Doctors moved around the room in hushed voices, their faces drawn with exhaustion. Hours had passed since the operation, yet no one dared leave. They knew this night would decide everything, who would wake, and who would never rise again. The alien woman stirred first, her eyes opening slowly. The ceiling lights blurred above her, and for a moment she thought she was already gone. But the steady sound of her own heartbeat reminded her she was alive. She touched her side, feeling the strange warmth inside. Something new, something not of her kind. A human gift now lived within her. Her gaze shifted to the bed beside her. There he was, the human who had given that gift. His face pale, lips dry, body unmoving except for the faint rise of his chest. Tubes and wires covered him, machines keeping him alive. Her throat tightened as she whispered, "You should not have done this, yet you did." Memories of his words echoed in her mind. "No one deserves to die alone," he had said. She had believed herself abandoned, forgotten by her own people. But this stranger had given his life without asking her name. The thought cut into her heart more than the surgery wound on her body. The night dragged on slowly, each second heavy. Doctors checked his vitals, shaking their heads quietly. "He is losing too much strength," one muttered. Another answered, "His body may not hold through the night." The alien woman overheard, her chest tightening with fear. She turned toward him, gripping the edge of his bed with trembling hands. Her whisper was soft, but desperate. "Don't leave me now. Not after saving me." Hours passed. The station outside the ward silent and dark. Only the glow of monitors painted faint light across their faces. The human's pulse dipped lower, and the alarm began to beep. Doctors rushed forward, injecting medicine, adjusting tubes. "Hold him steady," the chief surgeon commanded. The alien woman watched with wide eyes, her tears falling silently. Every beep of the alarm stabbed her heart. Her life was beating stronger with each passing minute, but his was slipping away. She reached out again, this time taking his cold hand in hers. Her silver skin glowed faintly under the light, her fingers trembling as they wrapped around his. Her people believed touch carried energy, life shared through contact. She closed her eyes, whispering in her language words of strength, "Take my strength, human, you gave me life, I give you mine." The doctors noticed her but did not interfere. Perhaps it was foolish, but in that moment, they hoped her voice might reach him, for sometimes survival came not only from medicine but from will. Minutes felt like years. The human's line dipped dangerously low, almost flat. The alien woman leaned closer, her tears falling on his hand. She whispered louder now, her voice breaking. "You cannot go, do you hear me? You cannot go." And then, against all odds, the monitor ticked upward. A faint but real beat returned. The doctors gasped, staring at the screen in disbelief. "He's stabilizing. Somehow," one whispered. The alien woman pressed her forehead against his hand, relief flooding her. Her tears mixed with soft laughter, weak but filled with hope. "You hear me, human? You're not leaving me tonight." The rest of the night stretched endlessly. Sometimes his pulse faltered, sometimes it grew stronger. The doctors never rested. The alien woman never let go of his hand. She stayed awake, whispering, praying, guarding him as he had guarded her. At one point, the chief surgeon approached quietly. "You should rest," he told her. "Your body still heals." But she shook her head fiercely. "I will not close my eyes while his are closed." There was no arguing with her. Her voice carried the weight of a vow, and so the long night continued. Two lives bound together in silence and struggle, one alive because of sacrifice, the other fighting to return from the edge. The ward was heavy with tension, yet within it grew something unseen, a fragile bond stronger than steel, born not of blood, but of choice. As dawn's first light crept through the small window of the ward, the alien woman still sat by his side, her hand holding his, her body weak, but her spirit unbroken. His chest rose slowly, weak but steady. The monitors hummed in rhythm, carrying a promise. The night had not claimed him. Not yet. The alien woman let out a trembling breath, closing her eyes for a moment. She whispered one final vow into the quiet morning. "If you wake, human, I swear my heart will be yours." The long night was over, but their story had only begun. The station's artificial sun had risen, flooding the medical wing with soft golden light. The long night had finally ended, but the air in the ward was still heavy with tension. The alien woman sat upright on her bed, her eyes red from exhaustion. She had not slept, not even for a second. Her hand never left the human's, her grip firm as if her will alone could keep him alive. The doctors whispered around her, checking the machines. "He is stable, but fragile," one muttered. Another shook his head. "He gave too much. It's a miracle he survived the surgery at all." But none of their voices reached her ears. Her focus was only on him, the stranger who had turned his body into her shield against death. Slowly, she tested her own strength. Her body felt different, not weak anymore. Her heartbeat was strong, her breathing steady. The human's kidney worked inside her chest like it had always belonged. She closed her eyes for a moment, whispering to herself, "He gave me life. Now I must guard his." The human lay motionless, his skin pale. Machines kept his chest rising. His pulse was a soft rhythm, but his eyes remained closed, lost somewhere deep. She leaned closer, her voice trembling. "You fought the night. Now open your eyes." Hours dragged by, the doctors came and went, nurses replaced fluids and checked vitals, but she never moved far. Every time a nurse tried to pull her away, she glared with surprising fire. "No," she would say, her weak voice carrying steel. "He did not leave me, so I will not leave him." Then, as the day grew quiet, something changed. The human's hand twitched under hers, faint but real. Her breath caught, her eyes widened. "Did you see that?" she whispered urgently. The doctors rushed forward, but she leaned even closer. Her heart pounded as his fingers curled weakly around hers. His eyelids fluttered, a shadow of life moving beneath them. The alien woman's chest tightened, tears already filling her eyes. Slowly, painfully, the human opened his eyes. At first, the world was blurred and blinding. Shapes moved above him. Lights stung his sight. But then he saw her, sitting there, clutching his hand as if it was the only anchor in the universe. He tried to speak, but his throat was dry. Only a rough whisper escaped. You lived. Her tears fell freely now, landing on his hand. Yes, she said softly. I lived. Because of you. The doctors checked his vitals quickly, relief washing over them. He's awake, one muttered in disbelief. Another said, he may actually recover. But the alien woman barely heard. Her focus was only on the man who had given her this chance. The human blinked slowly, his eyes weak but searching. Did it work? He asked, his voice rasping. She leaned closer, her silver hair brushing his face. It worked, she whispered. I feel alive for the first time. Her words shook with emotion, her hand pressing tightly against his. He closed his eyes for a moment, a faint smile forming on his lips. Good, he breathed. Then it was worth it. Her heart clenched painfully at his words. How could he speak so simply, as if his life had no value compared to hers? No, she said sharply, surprising even herself. Her voice echoed in the room, firm and desperate. It was not just worth it. Your life matters too. The human opened his eyes again, confusion flickering. But in her gaze he saw something fierce, something unbreakable. She would not allow his sacrifice to be forgotten. For the rest of the day, she refused to leave his side. She fed him water slowly, adjusted his blankets. Every small act was done with care, as if she feared he might vanish if she blinked. When he drifted back to sleep, she whispered near his ear, You are mine now, human. My life is tied to yours. The nurses noticed, whispering among themselves. She's guarding him like a mate, one said quietly. Another replied, Maybe she sees him as more than a savior. But none dared say it aloud in front of her. Her expression made it clear. She would fight anyone who tried to take him away. That night, when the lights dimmed again and silence filled the ward, the alien woman still held his hand. She traced his fingers gently, marveling at how fragile yet strong they felt. Her own heart beat in rhythm with his slow pulse. She realized then that gratitude was not enough. Something deeper had taken root inside her. Something she had never felt before. As the human slept, she leaned close, her voice barely more than a breath. You gave me your body, your strength, and now I give you my heart. Her words vanished into the quiet, unheard by anyone but her. But in that moment, it became a vow. The awakening was not only of her body, it was of her spirit, her will, and her bond to the human. He had given her life. Now she was ready to give him everything she had left. The dawn of a new day began, but for them, it was the dawn of something far greater than survival. It was the birth of a bond that neither species had ever known before, and it was only the beginning. The medical ward had become quiet again, but this time the silence carried hope. The alien woman no longer looked, weak and fading. Her steps were slow, but her body held new strength. Every heartbeat reminded her that she was alive only because of him. The human still lay in his bed, pale but breathing. His eyes opened sometimes, but he remained weak. Each time he stirred, she was there, ready to lift his head, give him water, or whisper comfort. She never left him, not even for food, not even for sleep. Other patients and staff began to notice. She follows him like a shadow, one nurse said softly. Another replied, It's as if she belongs to him now. Whispers spread across the station. Why would an alien woman stay so close to a human? But she didn't care about whispers. Her heart had made its decision the night he gave his kidney. Every breath she took was a reminder of the debt she owed him, but it wasn't just duty anymore. Something deeper had taken root. Something She didn't yet know how to name. One morning, when the human opened his eyes, he found her sitting at his bedside, carefully peeling strange alien fruit. When she noticed his gaze, she smiled weakly. "You are awake," she said, relief flooding her face. He tried to sit up, but his body was too weak. She hurried to stop him, pressing a hand gently against his chest. "Don't move," she said firmly. "You gave enough already." He chuckled faintly, though his voice was still rough. "You act like my guardian," he whispered. Her expression softened, but her voice was steady. "I am," she said. "You gave me life, so now my life belongs to you." Her words struck him deeply. He shook his head slowly. "I didn't do it to own you." But she leaned closer, her eyes glowing with quiet fire. "Then, I give myself freely," she whispered. "Not as a slave, not as a duty, but as a heart that is yours." He had no reply, his throat tight with emotion. For the first time since the surgery, warmth spread across his chest. Not pain, but something gentler, something he didn't expect to feel. Days passed, and she became his strength when his body failed. When he tried to walk again, she stood beside him, her arm around him, steadying his steps. When food was placed near him, she tasted it first, making sure it was safe. When cold nights came, she brought her own blanket and placed it over him. Even if she shivered, other humans and aliens in the ward began to whisper louder now. Why does she protect him so fiercely? Does she not know the rules between species? But she ignored them. In her eyes, there was no rule greater than the bond of life he had given. One evening, while helping him walk the corridor, a group of aliens stopped them. One sneered, "Why do you waste your time with a human? You are healed, you owe him nothing." Her silver eyes blazed with anger. She stepped in front of the human, shielding him, her voice cut like a blade. "I owe him everything. My heart beats because of him. If you question that, you question me." The group fell silent at her fierce tone. Even the human was stunned, watching her stand taller than her frail body should allow. For a moment, he saw not a patient, but a warrior. Someone who had chosen her side and would never waver. Later, when they returned to the ward, he whispered, "You didn't have to defend me like that." She turned to him, her face softening. "Yes, I did," she said. "You gave me life. If the galaxy turns against you, then so will I." That night, she sat by his bed again. The station outside hummed quietly, the stars beyond the window glowing faintly. She leaned closer, brushing her fingers across his hand. In her own tongue, she whispered, "You carry my life inside you now, human. But soon you will carry my heart too." The human, half asleep, heard her voice faintly, though he didn't understand her alien words. Something inside him stirred, something that told him her vow was real, something that told him their bond was becoming more than survival. The days turned into weeks. His body healed slowly, her strength returned faster, and yet she never left him, never allowed distance. Her people whispered in disapproval, but her heart whispered louder, stronger. Unbreakable, she had made her decision. She would repay him not with words, not with gifts, not even with service, but with the one thing no one else could give. Her heart, and in the quiet of the ward, as he drifted into another fragile sleep, she placed her forehead against his hand and whispered a vow. "From this day, I am yours." The debt of the heart had been spoken, and it was only the beginning of what the galaxy would soon learn. The ward could no longer hide their story. Whispers had spread across the station like fire in dry fields. A human had given part of his body to save an alien woman, and now she followed him everywhere, guarding him as if her life was tied to his. At first, it was only quiet gossip. Nurses, muttered guards raised their brows, but soon the whispers grew sharper. Some called it weakness, some called it shame, and others called it dangerous. One evening, while the human practiced walking again, leaning on a cane, the alien woman walked beside him, her hand always close, ready to catch him if he fell. A group of alien officials stood waiting at the end. of the corridor, their uniforms heavy with symbols of authority, their eyes cold. The tallest stepped forward. "You should not be here," he said, voice echoing. "You belong with your kind, not with this human." The alien woman's jaw tightened, her silver eyes burning. She stood firmly between them and the human. "My place is with him," she said, her voice calm but sharp. The officials exchanged angry looks. One hissed, "Do you realize what you are declaring? Our laws forbid such ties." Another added, "If word spreads beyond this station, both your people and his will see this as betrayal." The human shifted uncomfortably, his cane shaking in his grip. He opened his mouth to speak, but the woman raised her hand to silence him. Her voice cut through the corridor, steady as a blade. "He gave me his life when no one else cared. I will not abandon him now." The words echoed, shocking even the humans nearby, for she had spoken not only loyalty, but defiance against her own leaders. The tallest official narrowed his eyes. "Then you leave us no choice. Return with us, or we will bring this matter before the council." The alien woman's lips curved into a faint smile, but her eyes carried fire. "Do as you wish," she said, "but know this, my heart already belongs to him." "No council can change that." Gasps filled the corridor. Even the human's breath caught. Her vow had been spoken before witnesses, and in her culture such words were not light. They were binding. The officials recoiled as if burned, their anger twisting their faces. "You dishonor your kind," one spat. "You dishonor nothing," she answered coldly. "You only fear what you do not understand." They left, but the threat hung heavy in the air. The human leaned against his, cane, confusion in his tired eyes. "You didn't need to go that far," he whispered. She turned to him, her expression softer now. "I did," she said gently, "because they would have taken me from you, and I will not allow that." That night, the ward buzzed with rumors. Humans whispered of bravery, aliens whispered of betrayal. The tension grew thick like a storm waiting to break. The chief surgeon pulled the human aside, his face grave. "You don't understand the weight of what she said," he warned. "In her people's law, giving her heart means she has chosen you above her kin. The council will not forgive this easily." The human sat silently, his hand trembling slightly on the cane. He had never asked for this, never imagined his choice to save her would ripple across species. But deep down, when he thought of her words, something inside him stirred. Something that felt less like fear and more like belonging. Meanwhile, the alien woman stood near the window, her gaze fixed on the endless stars beyond. She knew her people's anger would come, but she did not regret her vow, for every beat of her heart was proof of what he had given, and she had no intention of breaking that bond. Days passed and the tension grew worse. Messages from the alien council arrived, filled with threats and demands. "Return her to her people," they wrote. "She is bound by law. This human bond is forbidden." But she refused every order, tearing the messages apart before his eyes. The human grew restless. "You can't fight your entire people for me," he said one evening. Her silver eyes turned toward him, steady and unshaken. "I can," she said, "because you fought death for me. What is a council compared to that?" But even as she spoke bravely, shadows moved behind the scenes. Officials whispered of punishment, exile, even execution. Some humans on the station began to fear what would happen if her people declared war over this bond. The ward became a place of tension. Every visitor came with watchful eyes. Every corridor carried the weight of danger, and yet, the alien woman never faltered. She stayed at his side, fed him, guarded him, stood between him and every threat. Her people could call it betrayal. Humans could call it strange. But to her it was simple truth. Her life and heart were his now. Late one night, as the station's lights dimmed, she sat beside his bed again, her hand over his chest, feeling his heartbeat. She whispered softly, into the quiet, "They can send threats, they can send armies, but they cannot take me from you." Her eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the stars outside the window. Her vow had become her weapon. and though the threat grew closer with every passing hour, she was ready to face it. For the bond between a human and an alien was no longer just survival. It was defiance, it was loyalty, and it was love taking its first shape, even if the galaxy wanted to tear it apart. The Council's judgment arrived like thunder rolling through the station. Messengers in dark uniforms carried sealed orders. The alien woman was to return at once. Alone, if she refused, the penalty would be exile or death. The ward turned cold with fear. Doctors whispered nervously. Nurses avoided eye contact. Even, some humans advised caution. "Let her go," they told the human quietly. "She is not yours to keep. Her people will not forgive this bond." But he shook his head, pale and still weak. "I didn't save her to hand her back to those who let her die." His words were soft, but carried weight. And when she heard them, her chest burned with pride and sorrow together. That evening, a gathering filled the ward. Officials from both sides came to watch. Humans, aliens, doctors, guards, all waited for her choice. The Council's envoys stood tall, their voices cold. "You must return with us. Your heart belongs to your kind, not to him." The alien woman stepped forward, her silver eyes steady. Her voice rang clear, sharp like crystal. "No," she said. "My heart belongs to him." Gasps filled the room. The words were dangerous, forbidden, final. But she did not falter. She moved closer to the human's bed and placed her hand gently over his chest. "He gave me his body, his strength, his life," she declared. "I will give him mine, not just life but my heart." The envoys stiffened, their faces dark with anger. "You shame your people," one hissed. "You break our law." Another growled, but she raised her chin, defiance burning in her eyes. "Then I break it proudly, for no law is greater than the life he gave me." The human, still weak, tried to sit up. Pain lanced through his side, but he forced himself upright. His voice was rough but steady. "I never asked for this," he said, "but I will not refuse. If her heart is mine, then I will guard it with my life." Silence fell heavy in the ward. The crowd stared in shock, an alien declaring love, a human accepting it. It was unthinkable, yet undeniable. The chief surgeon whispered under his breath. "History is being written here." The envoys' hands moved to their weapons. "If you refuse to return, we will take you by force." But before they could act, the alien woman stepped in front of the human, her body shielding him. Her voice thundered with rage. "Touch him, and you will have to kill me first, Umduri." Guards hesitated, stunned by her boldness. For in their culture, to speak such words was not only defiance, it was binding oath. Even the envoys faltered, uncertain of what line had just been crossed. The room erupted with voices, humans shouting, aliens arguing. But in the center of the storm stood the two of them, her hand on his chest, his eyes locked with hers. No fear, no shame, only truth. Finally, one envoy spat bitterly. "Then you are no longer one of us. You are cast out." He turned sharply, leading his guards away. Their footsteps echoed, leaving behind silence heavy as stone. When they were gone, the alien woman turned to the human, her hands trembling now, tears slipping from her eyes. "I have nothing left," she whispered. "No home, no people." The human reached weakly for her hand, his fingers curling around hers. "You have me," he said simply. Her breath caught, her tears falling faster. She knelt beside his bed, pressing, her forehead against his hand. "For life, for death, for all my days, I am yours," she vowed. The words carried the weight of her entire soul, and in his tired but steady gaze, she saw his answer without needing words. The ward erupted again, but this time with whispers of awe. Doctors stared, nurses exchanged wide eyes. Even humans who had doubted before now looked at the pair with respect. Something greater than law, greater than species, had just been born. In the days that followed, news spread across the station. Some called it madness, others called it love, but no one could deny the truth. A human and an alien had broken barriers that stood for centuries. And they had done it not with war, not with politics, but with sacrifice and heart. As the human regained his strength, she remained his shadow, his guardian, his vow made flesh. And though the galaxy whispered threats, though councils plotted and leaders fumed, nothing could tear away what they had chosen. One evening, when the ward was finally quiet, the human sat upright for the first time without pain. The alien woman stood beside him, her hand resting lightly. On his shoulder, he looked up at her, his voice soft but sure. "Why me?" he asked. "Why give your heart to a man you barely knew?" Her eyes glowed softly in the dim light. "Because you gave me life when I had nothing left," she whispered. "And because when I look at you, I do not see a stranger. I see my future." The human's chest tightened, his lips trembling. Into a faint smile, he reached for her hand, holding it firmly. "Then let's face it together," he said. The stars beyond the window shone brighter. The galaxy remained uncertain, hostile, dangerous. But in that small ward, two hearts had chosen each other, and sometimes one choice was enough to change everything. The alien woman leaned closer, resting her forehead against his. Her whisper was soft, but it carried the strength of eternity. "My heart is yours." And in his weak but steady reply, the human gave his answer, "Then mine is yours." The heart's answer had been spoken, and the universe would never be the same again.